Café and Networking Podcast promotes entrepreneurs, startups, authors, business experts throughout the world, available on all major podcast platforms. I'm Tom Reaoch, an American known as the King of Networking, connecting people and speaking from my studio in Vinhedo, São Paulo, Brazil. Today we talk with Rebecca Roberts, joining us from Basel in Switzerland. Rebecca Roberts is a self-leadership specialist through storytelling, a mindset coach, story weaver, advocate for conscious rebellion. Rebecca is originally from Louisiana, the land of swamps, sweet tea, and bluesy jazz, has lived and traveled around the world, experienced a great diversity of cultures and people. Rebecca, what exactly is conscious rebellion?
So this is one of my favorite things when it comes to how we question the stories that we tell about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times we think about this topic of rebellion as an outward expression. But when I talk about conscious rebellion, it's about the choice that we make to question the stories that are going on inside of our own heads first. Because this shapes who we believe ourselves to be. In other words, it shapes our identity. And from this place, it shapes not only what we believe we're capable or what's possible for us to do or not do, but it also, so much we hear about know your why, know what you're doing and how you're going to do it. But before all of those things comes the narrator, the one who is looking at the world. And so this idea of conscious rebellion is actually quite a gentle process of getting curious with what are the stories that we're weaving in our own minds before anything ever comes out of our mouths. And so
I've seen on your site, you also mentioned inner architecture. Are you an architect?
Yes, actually. My background is in interior design and architecture.
So that's where that comes from. So many times we just want to show the facade of the house. We don't want to bring people into the den.
Amen. Oh, you just hit it. Exactly, right? Well, and it's also, what is the structure that is stabilizing that house, right? You can have the most beautiful yard. You can have all of this great furniture. Everything looks good. Check boxes are ticked. But if the structure isn't stable, then, none of that stuff matters. It's all beautiful. And it's the same with our own lives.
Right.
So often we have these check boxes that we have. I need the right job and the right partner and the right amount of money. I want to be living in the right place and doing the right things. And all of that can be supportive of a fulfilling life and of deep connection. But at first, we have to have some connection and understanding of where our internal stability lies. And so that's that piece behind what is the safety, the structure that we find within ourselves first.
But different than a house, obviously you can remodel a house, but as a person, we can change, right? We can remodel ourselves, we can remodel our mind, I guess.
Amen. And this is one of those pieces is that, these are also the limitations to an analogy. There are certain parts of us that are structural, right? Certain things that are our preferences, that are our foundations that maybe we can't change, and we don't want to change.
Right.
They're a fundamental piece of who we are.
Integrity.
Absolutely. But then there are things that a lot of us believe are set in stone about our identities, about who we are and what we're capable of. And I think many of us, if we genuinely look with an open mind, with a curious mind as to the places in our lives where we've surprised ourselves, many of us can find places with COVID, with all of the things that have happened with the pandemic, things that we didn't think were possible or that we were capable of before. I know plenty of my clients, both corporate and individual, have realized, I can be tech savvy when I need to be.
Right. And when I have to be.
Exactly. When I have to be, when my job depends on it. Now, all of a sudden, we rewrite a story that we've had about ourselves. Some people have been hands off for years. That whole Zoom stuff. I don't know. And now, after a year or two, they are Zoom experts. And they're like, I can troubleshoot. I can figure all of this stuff out. And so this is, to be really honest, is to develop that deep connection within ourselves, to be able to question, to be able to rebel a little bit against the old stories that we've woven, and to ask ourselves, can I allow myself to experiment? Can I allow myself the space to play?
Can I learn? Can I keep learning?
Yes, absolutely.
And you talk about mindset, that sometimes we set our mind.
Amen.
And we have to open up that mind to be maybe set again.
Yes, yes. And again, and again, and again, and again. And this is the difference. At some point in time, maybe it was possible to learn a trade and have that go through your entire career. I think now, more and more, it's going to be also about the art of learning. Can we continue to learn?
I think the art of learning, but as you're the expert, the art of telling, of weaving, right?
Yes,
of getting
absolutely.
that storing out and finding where those fits are. And I think that's one of the pluses of the pandemic. We found fits that we never thought about.
Yes.
Our talk today, would I have found you? Would you have found me? Probably not.
Yeah.
No, that's not good or bad. That's just the way it was.
Exactly.
And so we live in a new life of new and more opportunities.
Yes, yes. And this topic of rebellion, that's why I love it so much, because when you put the conscious in front of it, it's not about a battle or anything like that, but it's just the willingness to question and say, even some of the old stories about where I came from and what I believe about my past, there's even the chance to reweave those stories into, instead of it being something that happened to me that was very difficult, how can I see how it benefited me, and the skills and the growth and the learning that came through that now make me capable of even more than I would have been before.
Now, Rebecca, you're in the center, literally, of Europe. What you do and how you do it now and moving forward, it's face-to-face, it's virtual, you go where you need to go, you go where you're invited. Is that a little bit of your future?
Absolutely. So a lot of what I do is I work one-on-one with individuals, but also I do a lot of consulting with small teams to help them look again at what is the narrator behind what we're pitching, what we're sharing, and how do we connect with our clients, with our investors? Because when we understand ourselves better and where we're coming from, the identity of a company or an individual, then it's much easier to connect and to network. And you, as the king of networking, you know this. You know something about connection.
Well, it's my lifeblood. And it should be most companies' lifeblood. Because we hear corporate culture is a buzzword. But as you know, when you get in and you talk to the teams, sometimes you're confused as what is that culture? Are there two cultures? Is the inside culture, the outside culture? The virtual culture, the face-to-face culture, what is it? And so but to me, it's still a people-to-people, person-to-person, one-on-one thing. And that could be face-to-face, could be virtual, could be whatever. So
yes.
And life is a story.
Yes.
Life is a story. And I think it's fantastic. But anyway, Rebecca, thank you for joining us from Switzerland.
My pleasure.
As far as I can remember, I think it's my first guest from Switzerland.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's great. Okay. So thanks for being here. Success. Okay. And the best way for people to find you is your site, RebeccaRoberts.com.
Yeah, that's the best way. That or LinkedIn, either which way. Love to connect. Let's share some stories.
Thanks again. Okay.
Cheers.
And remember, you can find more information about Rebecca Roberts. That's Rebecca. The last name is Roberts, Roberts, on LinkedIn. Her site, www.RebeccaRoberts.com. Café and Networking is brought to us by Focus MI Market Intelligence, an agricultural market research specialist in Brazil. More information on their website, focusmi.com. Thanks for listening. Until the next time here at Café and Networking Podcast.